All right, so let's get started. The Georgia Department of Education and the Georgia Career Information Center have partnered to provide access to the Georgia Career Information System, or GCIS, and the administration tools to every public middle school and high school in the state of Georgia. As a new middle school site coordinator, you'll have an opportunity to use GCIS to support your career advisement efforts at your middle schools. During today's presentations, we will define the types of GCIS users. We're going to explore the basic layout of the website. We're going to learn about the middle school advisement milestones. We're going to learn how to save and retrieve content. And then we're also going to take a look at this nifty resource called the Personal Learning Plan. And so I'm going to go ahead and minimize this Microsoft Word window that has the login instructions. And we're going to go straight into our website, which is the purpose of today's session. In order to access the Georgia Career Information System, GCIS, you need to visit the URL that is www.gcic.peachnet.edu. And when you arrive on that particular URL, this will actually take you to the Georgia Career Information Center's homepage, which is the organization at Georgia State University that hosts the Georgia Career Information System. There are two ways to actually log into the actual resource. You'll see that on the left-hand side it says click here to enter Georgia Career Information System, and click here to enter Georgia Career Information System Junior. When your students click on either one of those entry points, it will ask them for a username and password so they can actually access the resource. So let's go ahead and I'm going to click here to enter Georgia Career Information System. And you will see that it will bring you to a screen where you will be asked for a username and password. Now, prior to entering, I want to share with you that there are actually four types of GCIS users. There's what is called a school access, there is the My Portfolio access, a visitor access, and a parental access. The school access is actually a username and password that is distributed to each middle school and high school that allows your students to explore their career development information. Now, the school username and password, we actually contacted every school's principal asking him or her to assign a site coordinator who would actually be the main person who would receive information from the Georgia Career Information Center on how to introduce the information, how to manage the resources, and how to get the school started with that information. If your principal has not received an email or needs us to send the email again, we're more than happy to do so because this is your first point in getting started in terms of using the resource. So if your principal has not received it or you're not sure who your site coordinator is, please feel free to send an email to gciscoordinator@gsu.edu. Again, that is gciscoordinator@gsu.edu. The school username and password is set by GCIC, and again, it is a username and password that you can share with any end user. So it could be sharing with teachers, you can share with other counselors, you can share this information with volunteers at your school. Anyone who has an interest in career development at your school can have access to that school username and password at your site coordinator's discretion. The second way that you can access our resource is via what is called a My Portfolio username and password. And the My Portfolio username and password has all of the same bells and whistles as the school username and password. However, it goes a step further and allows a student to save information in it. So that particular username and password is unique to every one of your students. That particular item That particular item can be set either by the student, the site coordinator can set up portfolios for your students, or the Georgia Career Information Center can set up usernames and passwords for each one of your students. If you would like for us to participate in setting up usernames and passwords for your students, what you can do is you can send us a spreadsheet, and on that spreadsheet we would ask that you include your students' first and last names. We would ask that you include your student's graduation year. And next, we would ask that you let us know how you would like your username and password to appear for your students. When you create a username for your students, it has to have a minimum of 6 characters. And that can be alphanumeric. It has to be unique within our system in the whole state of Georgia. So some examples of usernames that you may want to adopt, you can do a student lunch ID number. You can do a student number that's associated with your district. You can use a combination of first name and last name. I've even had some people to get savvy recently where they're doing last name plus the lunch number, again, ensuring that it is unique across the entire system. And so whatever it is that you decide to come up with in terms of your username and password, we will definitely try to adopt that particular protocol. And this is also important that you have a similar protocol across your district, because you may have some students that are moving back and forth between schools, so they've transferred from one middle school to another middle school, or they are matriculating from elementary to middle to high. You actually would have a unique setup for your entire district where you can easily transfer those students back and forth. In addition to creating the username, we would also establish a password. And the password in our system has to be a minimum of 8 characters. There has to be at least 1 capitalized letter, at least 1 lowercase letter, and at least 1 number. Some of our school districts have decided to adopt first initial as a capital letter, last initial as a lowercase letter, and the student birthday, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit year if you so choose. I've had some to adopt a mascot followed by a graduation year. I've had some that have elected to use the GCID. So it's completely up to you, and of course include some alpha characters on that as well. It's completely up to you how you would like for us to set up that information. You can have 1 password for all students if you would like to set it up that way. So again, if that is something that is of interest to you, please definitely let us know by contacting the GCIS Coordinator at gsu.edu website, and we'll be more than happy to implement those requirements. And we've also had some schools that have actually contacted their district office just to have everything set up at one time, and we're more than happy to accept that information as well and kind of get you all started at once. The third type of access is what's called a visitor account. And a visitor account is actually set up by a student, and this would allow a person to look into a student's portfolio and leave comments on the information within that student's portfolio. The student could set the usernames and the passwords. They get to define what each visitor sees inside of that particular item. And your students can also define how long they can see that. And so, again, that is the reason that you would want to use a visitor access. So a student can share that with a mentor. They can share it with an admissions counselor. And they can also share that, let's say, with a teacher as advisor who is not that student's standard teacher. So, again, an excellent way for you to incorporate that particular resource. All right. And finally, the last way that you can access the resource is through what is called a parent account. For the parent account, you as a site coordinator, if you are assigned that particular role, you can actually attach a parent account to a student account so that the parent can see what is going on within that student's portfolio, provide feedback, and you guys can interface with the student and the parent simultaneously and be able to engage in that annual and ongoing advisement. So for today's presentation, I'm actually going to log in to one of my fictitious students' portfolios so that you can see all of the resources that are available within. All right, so I'm going to go to all right, I see two viewers who are saying that they cannot see the actual webinar. To access the visual component of the webinar, there is a link within your confirmation email that has join.me, okay, / Georgia written out _ career _ information _ center. So I have now logged into my students' portfolios, and this is the basic interface in which your students will be able to see when they access the GCIS component. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a logo that says our system's name, Georgia Career Information System. And this will become very important to you as you start navigating through the system. It is one of the ways that you can actually return to this home page after you start navigating through the various components of the resource. And so anytime you click on that, it will take you back to this very first home page and will allow you to start over in terms of your resource. Some items I'd like to point out to you on this particular navigation, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, when you get back to your school, you'll actually see your school's name. And so for this particular one, my school name happens to be called Sample School GCIS. And again, you'll always see that whether your student is signed in with the school username and password, or they're signed in with their individual portfolio username and password. Continuing in the upper right-hand corner, you have items where you can actually see your student's name. So this student's name is Cindy. And immediately to the right of Cindy's name, there's a little drop-down arrow that allows you to do a series of functions within the system. So on this drop-down menu, your students have what is called View My Portfolio. And the View My Portfolio allows you to see the portfolio landing page where you can see information that the student has explored and saved previously. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that since the student is established. So for instance, again, this is the My Portfolio landing page. And let's say the student wanted to see where are the pages and results that they have saved. So on this section, they'll have what are called the favorites, sort and assessment results, and stored files and links. And to see that information, your students can either click on this little plus sign immediately to the right of where the pages and results I've saved, or expand overview. And so I'm going to click on expand overview, and you'll see specifically in that favorite section, the student has saved 4 career profiles, has saved 8 financial aid titles, has saved 3 Georgia schools, so on and so forth. So again, it gives you a quick summary, and if you wanted to see more information regarding that particular element, your students can actually click on these items and be able to navigate forward within that particular construct. All right. Continuing on that toolbar on the upper right-hand corner next to Cindy's name, you have what is called the Share My Portfolio. And I described this a little bit earlier. With the Share My Portfolio, this is where your students can set up that visitor account I alluded to. And so when your student comes to the Share My Portfolio item, they have a little link that says Go to Visitors. And when I click on Go to Visitors, it gives me a little description about what would happen with this resource. And I'm simply going to click on the button called Add Visitor. And here's where the student, I get to set up a username, a password, and I get to send an email to that person with that username and password so that he or she will automatically have access. I also get to set that date for how long I want them to have access to my portfolio, and I would simply click on Add. And when I click on Add, I can earmark the items in which I would like for my visitor to provide comments. So I would like them to comment on my course planner. I'd like them to comment on my assessments. And I would click up Update View. And this person, visitor to my portfolio, will have the login expiration date of this Saturday. So they'll be able to come in, see everything, respond, and this would also assist with my annual and ongoing advisement. Going back up to Cindy's name, and I just want to point out to you, I've not left the visitors page right now. GCIS allows you to navigate through various components of the system without having to leave where you are or to actually start over in order to get somewhere. The next element that you have under Cindy's name is Print My Portfolio. And similar to what we saw with the visitors, I get to cherry pick what I would like to have on my portfolio report. And so Cindy has been a longtime user of GCIS, so she has quite a few elements that are saved within her portfolio. And if I were to click on Print Selected Items, this would give me a full report of everything that she has ever done within her portfolio because I put no specific parameters on there. And if I remember correctly, the last time I printed out this particular report, it ended up being about 27 pages worth of content. So it can get pretty lengthy, and again, you have the opportunity to cherry pick what you would like to include on that report. So great mechanism that you can use when you are working with the student, again, to kind of see where they've been and to help them to make decisions about where they're going in terms of their goals. Going back up to Cindy's name, she has an opportunity to edit her image. So if you kind of look in that far upper right-hand corner, you'll see there's kind of like a little face. And let me show you the larger version of it. Let me go ahead and click on Georgia Career Information System to get back to that first page. So here's the larger version of that very same image at the top. And so I can click on Edit Image, and I can enter an avatar that shows how I'm feeling today. And so now it's changed my little avatar. And the last thing that I can do, which is also very important, is what is called the account settings. So with the account settings, I have an opportunity to edit my name. I can change my email address. I can adjust my graduation year. I can enter a new password. I can also elect a couple of security questions and responses to those questions. So let's say that I forgot my username and my password and I can't get in. When I go to the very first page where it has the login information, there's also a link on there that says forgot password. And the system will ask, well, what is your username? Or what is your email address? And if I've entered my email address and I can successfully respond to my security questions, GCIS will send that student an auto reply that has a temporary password in there that the students will be able to reset and be able to continue with their career exploration, also reducing the opportunity for the student to go create a second, third, and 10th portfolio. You also have what is called your privacy. You get to set how much information you as a student gets to set how much information that the site coordinator can see within the individual portfolios. So right now I have mine set as, yes, my school counselor or career advisor can view my portfolio, and you can actually remove this as a site coordinator via the administration tools. And you may want to register for the administration tools for new middle school users, which will occur, I believe, 2 weeks from today. I have a great question. Can you post the data file layout for uploading password information? Yes, I can definitely send that information to everyone. Again, definitely send me an email at GCIS Coordinator, and I can give you all the ins and outs of the requirements to get that set up for you guys. You can also, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, this is a very important feature, specifically if your students are matriculating from the middle school to the high school. So this will be very important when your 8th graders are moving up to 9th grade. And this is also a great resource if your students have moved from one middle school to another middle school. Your students can actually transfer their portfolio from one school to another. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on Change Schools Organization. And the system will ask, well, what is the new school's username and the new school's password? This is that very first set of username and password that I alluded to during our presentation. So this is the school username and password that is given to the principal and the school's site coordinator. And remember, that's the one you can also share with anyone on campus because it does not have a specific person's information on there. I see several of you are asking about the requirements for uploading portfolios. What I can do is everyone that is on the webinar today, I can forward that those instructions to everyone who is here so that you have it all. All right, so now I'm going to go to the upper left-hand corner. Another way for you to get back to that main page is simply by clicking on the house on the left side. And I'm going to continue to talk about all of the elements on that little toolbar. So your students also have an opportunity to send messages to you, to the site coordinator, as well as anyone who has access to those administration tools. So I'm going to quickly show you that Cindy has 4 messages. And you will see that Cindy has received quite a few messages, some of them open, others are not. And so you will be able to see in the first column you have a little legend of various items indicating the status of a message. So if you see a closed envelope, that indicates that that message has not been read. If you see an open envelope, that means that it has been read. And then there's a third icon that is possible where if a student, and actually I'll demonstrate this one, a student can actually delete a message. And what would happen is that later on it would show that that student has gotten rid of that item. Your students also have what is called messages sent, and so you would simply go up to select mailbox folder, go to message sent, and then you can see that this student has communicated with her site administrator. When I can also have the opportunity to send new messages, so I'm going to click on Send New Message, and when I do so, if I happen to have an email account, I can have this duplicated in my external account. I can send a message to any of the staff accountants. I can send it to my visitor who I established earlier, or I can send it to my site administrator. If I happen to have had a parent attached to this, I would have been able to contact mom, dad, or guardian as well. Okay. I would simply implement a subject, type a message, and click send. Does it help if I chose a person? I'm going to send it to my visitor. All right. So now you can see close envelope on messages sent. It was sent today, September 8th. Subject, to whom, that person's first name, type of account, what was the subject. And lastly, in that upper right-hand corner, you have the logout. So anytime you are finished navigating through the system, this will be the opportunity to close out your file so that no one else has access to your system. GCIS also supports various types of our system. So you're actually seeing the graphic version of GCIS. There's also a text version of GCIS. So if you have any students that are working with assistive technology, you can translate this to the text version, and it will earmark the items that are available completely in text so that your students can work with our career development information in that assistive environment. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and click on the graphic version. And that will return me to our home page. All right. So I just want to give you a quick overview of the rest of the layout, and then I'm going to spend the balance of our time looking at the career advisement milestones for middle schoolers. But I just want to make sure that you have a basic understanding of the navigation of the full system, because there are so many different resources that are available. And they're actually going to be housed throughout the rest of the navigation. So at the top, you'll notice that there is a horizontal blue line, and on that particular line, you will see a little house, which I demonstrated, which takes you back to this main page. You also have 6 categories. You have what are called plan, assessment, occupation, education, employment, and my portfolio. And just as a tip, my portfolio only becomes available when you're logged in as a portfolio user. And within each one of those categories, we have various resources that your students can access in order to find complementary resources. The second way that you can navigate through the GCIS is via different content group areas of a specific focus. So you have what is called Get Started, Learn About Myself, Learn About Work, Learn About Schools, and Learn About Employment. And so if you elected to use this content area navigation, your students will have an opportunity to either click on the word View, or they can click on the corresponding plus sign to see the information that would help them to get started. So get started, when I click on the little plus sign, this would revolve around creating a portfolio, looking at the career plan, the course planner, and keep that in your mind because we're going to look at that specifically for 8th grade, and what are called checklists. Now I'm going to go ahead and close that up, and the remaining areas have very similar setups that house related characteristics that will help you to navigate through the resource. So GCIS goes far beyond just what the middle school advisement milestone requirements are. So let's go ahead and talk about those middle school advisement milestones. Each one of your students has an opportunity to complete a variety of activities to ensure that they meet those milestones as designated by the Georgia Department of Education. And being that today's webinar is focused on our middle school grades, we will start with the 6th grade requirements. So the first requirement for a 6th grade student is that he or she has to have a portfolio in GCIS. Again, first requirement is that the student must have a career portfolio. And that can be an easy win for you because, again, there's multiple ways that you create a portfolio. 1, the student can create his or her own portfolio. 2, you as the site coordinator can create this portfolio. Or 3, you can have the Georgia Career Information Center assist with creating your students' portfolios. The next item that your students have to do, they have an option. Your students have to complete one of 2 assessments. The assessments that we have earmarked for your 6th graders, let me show you where they're located first. So I'm going to go up to the top of the screen. I'm going to hover over the Assessments tab. The 2 assessments that we have earmarked for credit for your 6th graders are what are called the Career Cluster Inventory 48 questions or Career Cluster Inventory 80 questions. Now, I will share with you that the 80-question version has a younger reading level than the 48-question version. So let's take a look at those assessments. Again, from the home page, I hovered over the Assessments tab. I went under the question, what are my interests? And I'm going to start with the second one, Career Cluster Inventory 80 questions. Career Cluster Inventory allows your students to look at 80 activities. And your students are going to respond how well they would like to do that activity. So they will have like very much, like, not sure, or dislike. And I saw that I was reading through the chat window, I saw someone asking about English and in Spanish. This assessment is available in both languages. And if you look towards the upper right-hand corner, you should see Espanol. You can click on that module or that particular tab, and it will translate that assessment for your students. To complete this activity, I'm going to click on Rate the Activities in the bottom right-hand corner. And your students will see the first activity that they are to respond to is Go Fishing. You have the 4 response buttons in which you can select to log in your answer. You have our progress bar at the bottom. It tells you how many items are remaining. Since we've not answered any, we still have all 80. And you have what is called Explain. Go Fishing, again, is the activity. When I click on Explain, this will show some of the skills that are necessary for going fishing. So you need to have patience and willingness to be outside for a long period of time. It'll ask you a series of questions. And if you happen to answer affirmatively with those questions, you may also enjoy taking courses that use some of the similar skills. So you may want to be interested in taking biology or any courses related to agriculture. So again, this is helping your students with that ongoing advisement beyond just answering these questions. So I'm going to go ahead and for Go Fishing, I'm going to click on Like Very Much, Like, Not Sure, and Dislike. And that'll take me up to number 5. Let's say say that the bell rings and the student has to stop at any given point. What you can do is you can click on Save in the upper right-hand corner, and your student has an opportunity to enter something in a reflections box. And I'm going to click on Save Information, and now this becomes a part of my portfolio. So again, remember I said Cindy's been in school for quite some time. So on your student screen, it'll say Restore Answer Set 1. On Cindy's, it says Restore Answer Set 79. You'll be able to see her thoughts that she's entered. You'll also be able to see the date when she entered that particular item. Let's say that it's tomorrow, and I'm going to go back to the main page. When Cindy comes back tomorrow and wants to pick up her assessment, what she'll do is she'll go over to the right-hand side and hover over My Portfolio, and there is a question where the pages and the results I've saved. This mirrors what we saw earlier in the portfolio dashboard. We're going to go down to Sort and Assessment Results. And you'll see over on your left-hand side, you'll see the names of all of the assessments where Cindy has actually completed some information. The one that is depressed right now is the Career Cluster Inventory 80 question version. We're going to click on Restore Answer Set 79. And it'll say your answers have been restored. Click Continue. And it'll take her right back to where she was when she last logged into the system. Now, I'm going to show you, as by site administrators, teachers, and those who will be delivering this content to the students, I'm pretty sure you don't want to go through all 80 activities. So, we actually have a little magic button, if you will. So, if you look at the button Save, you'll see there's a little star immediately to the left of the word Save. And you'll see that there is a faint gray horizontal line. If you look at that star and just start pulling your cursor down, you'll see that your cursor will change to a little hand. I'm going to click where I see the hand. And what this does is it magically takes me to the end of the assessment so I can demonstrate for my students what the results page would look like. And so you will see that this particular assessment is related to the 16 federal career clusters within the table, and it gives the student scores for said 16 items. And Georgia recently, within the last 2 years, implemented a 17th cluster. So if your students would like to explore the energy cluster, we've also included that item in this requirement as well. Okay. So now, if you go to the upper right-hand corner, to ensure that this assessment is saved completely and that your student gets full credit for this 6th grade middle school advisement milestone, they will click Save, and they can elect to erase what they have in that text box because it is optional, and they would click Save Information. When you go to your administration tools, you'll be able to see that this student has a C for complete if the student were class of 2023, because the student has successfully saved Career Cluster Inventory at its conclusion. Let me quickly demonstrate the second option. So they can either do the 80 question version, or I'm going to head back up here to the Assessments tab, and I'm going to click on Career Cluster Inventory 48 question version. Very same layout, except fewer questions here. And if you remember, the first item on the 80 question version was Go Fishing. When I click on Rate the Activities on this one, the very first item is I might be interested in planting and harvesting crops on a farm. So depending on which one you are more comfortable administering to your students would dictate which of those elements that you would use as a part of your instruction. And you may elect to use, for some of your students, the 48 question version, for other students, the 80 question version. I even have some school districts that say, hey, do both, and just kind of use them as a comparative tool. All right, so I'm going to do the same demonstration I did earlier. I'm going to go up to right below the little star. Cursor changes to a hand directly beneath the horizontal gray line, and I get my responses. All right, so those are the two elements for your sixth grade students. So again, just to reiterate, sixth grade students have to have a career portfolio, and they have to complete either career cluster inventory 80-question version or the 48-question version. All right. The next element that your next grade is for seventh graders. Your seventh graders have an opportunity to select between two assessments, and they also have the opportunity to save 3 career clusters. So let's start out with saving the 3 career clusters. Inside of GCIS, let's say that you're coming in fresh into the system, the career clusters are actually located under the Occupations tab. And under the Occupations tab, you'll see that there's a question called, What can I learn about occupation? And the second element is 17 career clusters. When I click on 17 career clusters, I will see the 17 names, and you'll notice that it has a distinction career cluster at the end of each one of these 17. So let's say that I have a student that's interested in the energy career cluster. When I click on the name of that cluster, I will see a link that says information about energy career cluster, and this would be very similar if you were to have clicked on education and training. It would have said information about education and training career cluster. And then you would have a series of occupations that fall beneath. To get credit for the 3 career cluster requirement, your students would click on information about energy career cluster. They will have an opportunity to read a variety of topics as it relates to that cluster. So there's an overview. You can see the Georgia pathways as denoted by the Georgia Department of Education. You would see skills, helpful high school courses, levels of education and earnings, and students always love to stop here because these are actually ordered by the amount of education necessary in order to participate in a specific occupation. They can see both the national annual median wage as well as the Georgia annual median wage. They can see employment outlook, resources, occupations that are related, as well as programs of study. To save this item inside of the portfolio, your students will simply go over to the right-hand side and click on Save. And the student can elect to say something about this cluster. Or they can elect to leave it blank. I'm going to click Save Information, and this now becomes a part of my student's portfolio. So you'll see Energy Cluster here. Wow, this is exciting. Saved on 9/8/2016. Let me show you that one more time. For the second one, we're going to hover over Occupation. We're going to go down to 17 career clusters. We're going to select the name of a cluster. We're going to click on information about that particular cluster. Read through the content. Go to the upper right-hand corner. Click Save. Elect to say something or not to. Save information. My student now has one more item to save in order to meet that 7th grade requirement. The second element for your 7th graders is that they have an opportunity to choose between one of 2 assessments that we have earmarked. So we're going to go back up to, I'll click on Home. We're going to go back up to the Assessments tab. And here, for your 7th graders, they can either do the interest profiler 60 questions, or they can complete the reality check. So I'll quickly demonstrate the interest profiler 60 questions. On this particular item, your students will look at 60 activities, and they're going to select their level of interest. So they strongly like something, they like it, they're unsure, they dislike it, or they strongly dislike. So I'm going to click on Rate the Activities in the bottom right-hand corner. And just to draw your eyes up to the top, this is also English and in Spanish. Very similar interface to what we saw with the career cluster inventory, 80 and 48 question versions. This time you have 5 responses. And so the same way that we were able to save this item in the middle, all right, your students can complete this element quickly. And so here we also have that fabulous cheat button. And so I'm going to, again, directly below that star, click on the little hand. This time your students will see the information related to 6 areas of interest. They have investigative, they have social, they have conventional, artistic, realistic, and enterprising. And so I will click on investigative as that is my top score. And of course your students can look at through any of these items. And what GCIS does is it shows different occupations that would be considered interesting to a person who has an investigative background. So people with investigative interests will work activities that have to do with ideas and thinking more than physical activities. And so you'll see the name of the career clusters. You will see the occupations that fall within each one of those clusters. You can see the level of education, the wages, and whether it's considered green or not. You can order these by title, and now they're alphabetical. And you also have an opportunity to reorder these by education level. And so this one starts from 4 months to 1 year, so on and so forth. So I think this one goes all the way down to 5 or more years. Okay. So I'm now going to go to the top, and I'm going to click to go back to my scores, and I can now see everything. Your students can now save the official results, very similar to what we've seen with the other assessments. Click Save Information, and if this student were a 7th grader class of 2022, he or she would have a complete report. Let's go back up to the top to assessments. The second assessment that your students can choose is what is called the reality check. So again, going under the assessments, your students can go under what lifestyle can I afford. They'll click on reality check. Very fun assessment, actually one of our most popular assessments, where your students get to decide the value of $1. So how much does it cost to house me? How much does it cost to feed me? How much does it cost to clothe me, to entertain me? How much does it cost for my education? And based on the lifestyle selections that your students have completed, it'll say, okay, this is how much you need to earn in order to support your lifestyle. So I'm going to go to Get a Reality Check in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm going to click on Start Your Reality Check. And you will see on here that we have the 14 economic development regions. And on this, I'm going to select Atlanta. And I'm going to go to the bottom right-hand side and click on Next. And then my student, or I as a student, will be able to make different selections. So I start with my housing, and you'll see as I hover over these little circles at the top, it takes me to various areas in which I can make selections. For my living arrangements, it says, what type of housing will you need? And gives me a quick little blurb about my housing. And I have 6 responses in which I can enter. So 5 are pre-populated. The last one I can actually enter a specific dollar figure. So when I hover over a given item, it tells me what is included in that fee. So in Atlanta, for a one-bedroom apartment at $825, it's a one-bedroom apartment, unfurnished, and has one bedroom. And when I click on that element, it will tell me my amounts that I have for a month thus far, and it'll keep track of those different elements. I'm going to jump all the way to the end just so I can make sure that we have an opportunity to see everything that we need to cover, so you know all the milestones. And I'm going to jump over to the savings. I'm going to click on Next, and it will show me, based on the requirements that you have included, and remember, I've only chosen a house and I have savings, I need to make $11,773. And I would click on Next in the bottom right-hand corner, and it'll ask me, do you know how much education and training you're interested in completing? And so I'm going to click Yes, and I can say, oh, I want to do a 4-year degree, and I can select that, or I can select multiple areas. I would click Apply, and you'll see that it shares that information. I'm going to go to Next. It'll say, well, do you know what career cluster you're interested in? And I'll say, yeah. And I can click any of the clusters that are of interest to me. I will click Apply, and you'll see the listing of your choices. When I click Next, it will show me all of the occupations that meet my budgetary requirements. Here's a really quick thing that you can also do when you're in here. So you will notice I'm clicking on the little boxes to the left of the names of the occupations. I can actually save these directly in my portfolio. And that might be helpful because 8th graders have to save 3 occupations. So now you can make sure that that is based on real assessment results that the students have received. So here your students can look at the name of the occupation that falls in that cluster, the amount of education. Since I only selected 4 years, I only see that information, and I can see the wage information. From here, I can go up to the top of the screen, click on Save, elect to type something or not to, and click Save Information. So here, for this student, it's Restore Answer Set 25. Let's go ahead and click on Home in the upper left-hand corner. For your 8th graders, they have 2 items. 8th graders have to save 3 occupations, and they have to do that all-important 4-year plan. So I'm going to quickly demonstrate the occupations, and then we're going to go and look at the individual graduation plan. So very similar to what we did with the saving of the clusters. So we're going to hover over occupations. We're going to go down to what can I learn about occupations? We're going to click on the third link called occupations. And here I have an alphabetical index of all the occupations that fall within GCIS. And so I can click on the first letter of any occupation that is of interest to me. And when I click on that occupation, I can see everything there is to know about that occupation. So I can look at information such as common work activities. I can look at helpful high school courses. I can look at preparation. I can look at wages. And so there's a whole host of resources that are available in here that you will have access to as a student. My student will go up to Save in the upper right-hand corner, and I will go ahead and click on Save Information, and my student will do that 2 more times. So up at the top of the screen, hover over Occupations, drop down to the Occupations link, locate another occupation, read the content, click Save, say something about it, or Save Information. And the last element that I want to spend time on is your 4-year individual graduation plan, which is required of every 8th grader, whether you're doing CCRPI or you are doing Bridge. Our individual graduation plan is available both on the Plan tab, and it's called Course Planner Individual Graduation Plan, and it's also available on the My Portfolio tab, Course Planner Individual Graduation Plan. When I click on that element, this will take you to the basic interface of this item. Your students can choose which years in which they would like to plan for studying. So when I click on this little drop-down menu, I can look at all grades, middle school, high school, post-secondary, or I can even look at an individual year. I'll stick to what I have highlighted, which are my high school years, and you can verify that because you'll see 9th grade. And something that we do that is unique from other school districts and from other school information systems, we can actually upload your course catalog into our system so your students are actually able to select items that the students can actually realize within your district. So I have actually uploaded pathways into my system, and my student can actually select all of the courses at one time. And please keep in mind that is a pop-up menu. All right, so for my student, here are the 9th grade courses, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th grade. And so I can elect to populate all the information at one time. And there's my course plan. Now, I have the opportunity to also upload courses from the site administrator side so my students can select from that. So when I come in as a student, I have subject areas already predefined by the Georgia Career Information Center. And let's say I want to look at the English courses. I can either elect to type something in, or I can click on the corresponding plus sign, and it will show all of the courses that my site administrator has uploaded into my system. I can elect which term I plan to take this, so you may be on a semester system, you may be on a quarter system, or this may be an annual course that is available. I, as a student, get to select whether this is a requirement or an elective. When the site administrator uploads the courses, he or she can earmark how many credits it is available for. They can also include the course number. The student can enter an alpha or numeric grade. And as the administrator, you can enter notes such as this is a prerequisite. I'm going to go ahead. You'll see that all of the buttons are kind of a dark charcoal gray, and this first one is a blue. Blue indicates that it is hot. You want to click on it to cool it off so that it saves it within that particular portfolio and course plan. And so right now, as a default, your students have to type in their information. If you would like, you as the site administrator can upload the courses within your administration tools and have that display for your individual students. Or if you'd like assistance, we too can assist with that as well. Okay, I just saw someone that said, will you show how to populate all 4 years at once? It actually did that. So let me go back up to it again. So I'm going to go to Advanced Academic Pathway in Science. I'm going to click on Add to Course Plan, and you'll see that it has earmarked grades 9 through 12. And so there are my 4 grades. And so when I click on OK, and when the screen flashes, it's going to be all of the courses that you have at the bottom. So that's everything, all 4 years at once. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to learn about the various items that are available within GCIS to help you to meet those individual benchmarks for your students. I saw that there are a couple of questions asking if we can post walkthrough sheets. We will definitely have those available for you, and you will also have an opportunity to see this particular webinar as I have recorded it, and I'm actually going to go ahead and suspend recording right now.